Le Festival international du film de Marrakech, j'ai un invité exceptionnel pour TV5 Monde, Monsieur Martin Scorsese. Bonjour Monsieur Scorsese, vous êtes le président de ce jury, un président exceptionnel qui aime tellement ce pays, qui aime tellement le Maroc, qui aime tellement tous les cinémas du monde. Vous êtes heureux ici, on le sent.
Yes, I am. I was first here in 1983 and eventually came back to shoot a film in 1987 with a very, very important, passionate project for me, which when we made that film, it was Last Temptation of Christ. When we made that film, it was more like a little group, a family, very, very, very low budget, but very arduous filmmaking. Very arduous filmmaking, and what I found was I found it to be very comfortable, but how should I put it? Working with the Moroccan people on the crew, it was a great experience. It was very warm, very open, ecumenical in the sense of religious ecumenicism, which included all of us really, and lifted our spirits a great deal. Landscape, the people, the color, and the rhythm of the life. And so I was able to come back again in 1996 to make Kundun, another film with a spiritual core, so to speak, about the Dalai Lama, which was an extraordinary experience here.
Vous êtes un cinéaste du monde, vous cherchez votre source d'inspiration partout. Vous aimez cette diversité culturelle dans le cinéma?
Yes, you mean that for me, there's no barrier in cinema. There just simply isn't. In fact, when I first saw films that were not American films, they were Italian films, I was 5 or 6 years old. It was the films of De Sica and Rossellini and Open City and Paisa. And how it related to my family. My family was more, at that time, in 1946, 1950, 56, they were more Italian than American, more Sicilian than American. I'm more American than Italian. So I was right in that moment of time where I was living in a very different culture than the American culture around us. And so the connection was not only American films, but what were films apparently that did not come from that land, that came from somewhere else where people spoke differently, although they were speaking the same as my family spoke. So this opened me up to accepting or actually being very curious about the rest of the world. And my only way to see that in the 1950s was really through international cinema. International cinema was growing. I mean, you had Japanese films for the first time in America in the early 50s. Indian films by Sajid Ray, which really opened up my eyes, even though I saw them dubbed in English at first, you know. And so this opened up the world to me because we were a working class family. We couldn't travel, couldn't afford to buy theater tickets. We saw movies. The asthma that I had that was very debilitating, my parents could only take me to the movies. I couldn't do anything else from being involved with the parish and the priests, the altar boys, that sort of thing. But in any event, international cinema keeps me inspired and keeps me hopeful about not only cinema, but about the rest of the world.
Oui, Hugo Cabret, c'était l'hommage à Méliès, l'invention du cinéma qui est si importante pour vous, finalement les racines de ce cinéma. Vous défendez la protection des films. Il y a un patrimoine culturel dans le cinéma auquel vous êtes très attaché, Monsieur Scorsese.
Yes, again, for me, and a few of my friends in California, when I was living in California in the 1970s, we began to realize that a lot of these films were not going to be seen anymore. The films that inspired us, myself, Brian De Palma, Paul Schrader, Spielberg, Lucas, all of us. And then so I started to get very upset about it. This was before the advent of video and videotape and then DVD, of course. And so the only way you could maybe see Visconti's The Leopard or Le Beau Serge Chabrol, or, oh, I don't know, a Manelli film from 1949. The only way you can see them was a studio print, and that was privileged. Not everyone could have that print. Then you begin to realize that these things were beginning to dissolve, and certainly the color was beginning to fade. Just at the time we were told every film had to be made in color, which means color is a statement, an artistic choice. And so we decided to mobilize in a way. And so since 1990, we've been able to pull together, I'd say, have some part of over 640 films that we were able, the Film Foundation has been able to restore, including the World Cinema Project too, which has done about 20 films now. Those are concentrating on countries that don't necessarily have the ability to restore their work. Because I think this is an area where I came from, where my parents didn't read. I was able to see, learn about the world through cinema, so I think the same could happen by preserving these films for later generations.
Et capter la vie. Vous faites des films musicaux, vous faites des films de fiction. C'est toujours capter la vie, Monsieur Scorsese, en un mot, le cinéma pour vous.
I think so. I mean, I do enjoy making non-fiction films, films of music or poetry, in terms of the Bob Dylan No Direction Home, or George Harrison documentary. I find that they're a challenge to tell a story in a different way. And I find also there's kind of a manic desire to learn more as I get older. Time is running out. I have a young child. I try to let her know as much as possible. So this whole idea of teaching and learning, and it suddenly blossomed again in the past 14 years, particularly because the young people around me, you know. My daughter now, my youngest daughter has now turned 14. I'm now a grandfather for a year-and-a-half-old granddaughter. So all of this, I want them to be, as Paul Schrader told me 2 years ago, he says, we came from a time when cinema was taken seriously. I want them to know there's serious cinema, which can be funny, as opposed to cartoon, you know? And so I want them to be able to know that it's all there for them to pick and choose, and that every form of cinema is valid that way, and to not let this individual cinema disappear.
Merci, Martin Scorsese. On était tellement heureux et fiers sur TV5 Monde, Monsieur le Président du jury de cette 13e édition du Festival international de Marrakech, de vous accueillir. Merci infiniment.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.